Hey Internet, it's me. Now, today I was going to do Doctor Sleep because I saw The Shining yesterday, it just made sense to do the sequel. And I will say that despite totally not DC Comics' Zatanna being an absolute joy to watch on screen, and the scene in the bar where Lloyd starts to sound just eerily similar to Nicholson's Jack Torrance being amazing, I just was not in the mood to watch a 3-hour movie. It is a long movie. It is a commitment. And I wasn't feeling it. So, what I decided to do, spur of the moment, is I'm gonna just talk about a bunch of short horror films. I've worked on a bunch of short horror films, so that's something I'm very familiar with. A lot of them are created for or born of a concept or an idea from a 48-hour film festival. And I thought it would be fun to look at some of the horror shorts that are out there and just talk about them, because there are some amazing ones out there. So I gathered up a few that I've seen and know are great, a couple that YouTube just recommended to me that I was not familiar with at all, and then a couple that I've been in. I'll put those at the end because you may think that I'm biased or whatever, and you don't want to hear me talk about something I'm in because maybe you think it's too self-promotionary or whatever, I don't know. But those are at the end. I'll let you know when we're getting into those. You can skip them if you want. I will say, though, I was not paid to be in them, and I will not get paid if they get all kinds of attention now. So they're definitely not self-promotionary because they don't help me at all. They were fun to make, but that's about it. But I will start with one that it did win some awards. It made its round. If you watch horror YouTube, you've probably seen it, or at least seen the thumbnail or heard of it. But one called Ignore It. It is a great short. It's only a couple minutes. It's not a long video at all. I will say, too, spoilers going forward for all of these. If you don't want them spoiled, totally understandable. With short films, if they're spoiled, there's no point in watching it. So I get it. In the comments, I'm linking to every single one of the ones I'm going to talk about. You can go watch them first and then come back and hear what I have to say for whatever reason you want to. So, assuming now, going forward, that you've seen this and all the future ones, ignore it. It is a film. Basically, there's some sort of ghost or zombie or evil possessed woman. I don't know. There's a woman in this family's house. And the father says to his kid, one of the first things you hear, she's back. Which means this is something that they've dealt with before. This has happened already. And they already have established, how to deal with it. They know what the protocol is. And that is basically ignore her. Pretend she's not there. Don't acknowledge that she exists even. And if you do that, presumably, you're fine. However, this creepy, monstery ghost lady is, all up in your business, and it's hard to ignore. And that's kind of what the film's about, I don't want to give the entire ending away. Like I said, for a short, if it's spoiled, there's no reason to watch. But you can kind of predict what's going to happen. There's only one of two ways it could go. Either it works out or it doesn't. But it's very well done. One thing I said yesterday when talking about The Shining was that, child actors sometimes can only do so much. They are children. This movie kind of goes the opposite route. The kids in here are incredible. They're very good at looking and sounding afraid, but not like overselling it. Some kids either can't act and they undersell and you don't believe what they're saying. You could tell they're just reading a line. Other times, they take almost the Jim Carrey approach. They completely overact it and oversell it. And you're like, okay, that's a bit much, dude. You need to calm down. This is perfect. The actors here, the two children, just do incredible jobs. You believe that, they're terrified and they know what to do and it's hard for them to do, but they're trying to do it because they want to make it through this. And also, they don't fully understand this. They're children. They don't understand demonic beings. I mean, none of us would. They're not real things that we have to deal with in real life. So if one showed up, we'd all freak out a little. But yeah, the acting is really good. The visuals here, there's not really a lot. A lot of things are implied. You never see the monster lady. At one point, she charges towards camera. But even then, you're seeing her through like a partial reflection. You're not really seeing her. So the makeup is good enough to be really convincing for like the arm that you see or this reflection, but you never get the full body reveal, and that's okay. I will say, you don't always need to show your hands. Like, sometimes it's better when things are implied or partially hidden or obfuscated. You know, if you ever saw, oh my god, I've forgotten the name of it already. Babadook. If you've ever seen the Babadook, the monster is great until you start to see him more. And I know there's a reason the movie is the way it is, and he's supposed to become less threatening as the movie goes on. I get it, it's a metaphor, blah, blah, blah. But as just a film-going experience and as a theatrical experience and just, the emotions you get from it, when you're not quite seeing the monster or the first time he is finally revealed, he's kind of spooky. He's really well done. He has almost like cut paper out of a storybook look and feel, and it just makes it unnerving because it's such an impossible imagery. But then as the movie goes on, you see him more and more and more, and it becomes commonplace, and all the novelty wears off, and after a while you're like, this isn't scary, it's just a thing. And so I like when movies or shorts, like Ignore It, they don't do that. They don't overstay their welcome. You don't see it a ton, and it makes it more spooky, because you never even really see what the monster is. You don't even know what it is. Is it a vampire? Is it a zombie? Is it a ghost? Is it a demon-possessed neighbor? Who knows? And I like that they do that. And, yeah, I don't know. There's not a whole lot to say. Like I said, it is still relatively short. I say there's not a whole lot to say. I just haven't been talking for 10 minutes. But it's a very good one. I wanted to start this with this one because this is one I know for a fact it's really good. It was done very well. I don't even know what the awards it won were for, which I probably should have checked before I started ranting here. But whatever they were for, they were well deserved, because honestly, it's a very effective short film. It was done really, really well. So next up, we have Lights Out. This is another short that I have seen before, and it's a very short. It's about 2 minutes long. This one also is an award winner. I checked this time. Best Director is what it won for. Well deserved, by the way. But this is another one that, like I said, very short, 2 minutes. It's just concise and to the point, but it does a great job too. And I will say, to that point, that's something I really like about short films as a storytelling method, is that, you don't have the fluff. You're not trying to hit a specific runtime or meet a certain criteria. You just want to tell your story. However long that takes, that's how long the short is, Sometimes they're 3 minutes, sometimes they're 20. It doesn't matter. You just take however long it takes to tell your story. And I love that, as a way to tell a story and as a way to convey, just an arc or whatever. I think that is one of the better methods. I think I prefer a really good short film to most features. That being said, let me talk about this specific short film. Like I said, it's called Lights Out, and very simple concept. There's a woman, she's getting ready for bed, she's walking down her hallway to her bedroom, she turns off the light, she sees a weird shadow in the hall. And she doesn't react to the way a lot of people would. Again, this is horror. If people react smart, the genre stops existing, so you have to forgive that. But she doesn't flick the light on immediately and go and inspect and freak out a little. She leaves the light off for like a second or two to look at whatever it is she thinks she sees, then she turns it on. She goes off and on a few more times just to, okay, am I seeing what I'm seeing? Which, to some extent I get that, but at the same time, I feel like you'd walk toward the thing and explore it. You wouldn't just be like, yeah, I think there's a monster over there, I don't know. But anyway, she goes through that until at one point, the last time she turns it off, the monster is now directly in front of her. That time, she freaks out a little, turns it back on, and she ends up taping the light switch so it can't be turned off. And then she just goes to bed, which, again, unexpected behavior, but horror. And then the hallway goes off, all of a sudden, and she hides under her blanket, which is weird, because you'd think you'd want to have eyes on the situation to know if it's going to get worse or not. But she goes under her blanket. When she comes back up, she realizes her desktop lamp is starting to flicker. She eventually reaches down and plugs it in all the way, and all of a sudden the light in the hall is back on. Her door is only open how it was before. Everything seems back to normal. She thinks, okay, I'm probably safe. Maybe, I'm tired, I'm freaking out, I'm seeing things. And then it goes sideways again, and we see the monster up close, and the monster turns the light off. And that's where it ends. Just cut to black, done. And like I said, it's simple, it's quick, it's effective. It tells the story. She's freaking out about this thing. She doesn't know what it was. She's trying to stop it. She can't stop it, but then she thinks she did. Turns out, no, that was a misdirect. The monster is actually right here, and the light is not going to stop it from getting to you. It's very well done. It's a good story told well quick, and I like that. I like how the monster looked. It's just a woman, but the face is kind of distorted and exaggerated, and it's effective. It looks good. I really like it. As a creature design, I don't know if you'd say creature. It's just you'll see it. It's 2 minutes. Go watch the short. There's no reason not to. Go in the links below. Click the thing. Just watch it yourself. But yeah, for what it is, it's great. I really like it. It's very well done. When you see the monster, it'll jar you for a second too, like it does the lady in the film. It's well done, and yeah, I just appreciate it for what it is. Like I said, when you have a short film, you're just telling your story and you're getting it out there, and that's it. You don't need all the extra. And that's exactly what this is. There's a story to tell, they tell it, and then they're done. And I love it for that. They did exactly what I want them to do, and I enjoyed it the whole time. So, yeah, I don't have a lot to say, but I definitely recommend this one. There's nothing better you're going to do with 2 minutes. Go watch the film. And on to the next one. Alright, so we're on to the YouTube recommendations with this one. It is Close Your Eyes. A short film that also is an award winner. I'm assuming that's going to be a theme here. It won Best Horror Film in 2022. I did not look up what festival that was for, but it got an award, so yay for it. This is another very short one, I think 3 minutes long, 3.5, something like that. And like I said, I have not seen this one before. This was just a recommendation. I have thoughts about this one. The effects were good. It told its story concisely. There was no fluff. That was all great. The acting from both of the guys was good. I don't know that I get the point. They didn't establish the monster in the world. It doesn't make sense to me. And I know with the other shorts, you don't know why there's the monster in Lights Out or why the lady keeps showing up in this house. Ignore it. But here, they set up their own rules. You have to knock on this door, and then you listen and close your eyes, and you hear secrets. And for whatever reason, this guy does that. He doesn't hear anything. Then all of a sudden, the door bursts open. He goes to investigate, and the lady is inside the house already in a different room and charges at him, but then disappears. I don't know what that's about. And then eventually, he thinks everything's okay. She disappeared or whatever. He goes back to the living room, and then she charges at him from the corner of that room. And this time, you find out when the credits start rolling that he closed his eyes, and she's now whispering in his ear in some incomprehensible language. Like I said, it's short, it's effective, it tells the story. I don't know if I get the story. I don't know. In the other ones, there's a point. Ignore it, you find out it's impossible to ignore this thing. It's right there in your face. It's, you might try, you might know that you have to ignore it. You understand that that's the key to survival, but some things you just can't ignore. It's too present to ignore it. In Lights Out, this woman thinks she's safe because she has the light, and she's doing what she can to preserve it and keep it on, and you find out at the end that her efforts were in vain. The light doesn't actually stop the monster, and now it's going to get her anyway. In this one, I don't know what the story's doing. I don't know what it's telling me. The one guy is hearing secrets from the woman with his eyes closed, ear against the door. And then he explains how that happened. The other guy tries it, it doesn't work. And then she's charging at him like she's going to injure him. But you find out she's now whispering him secrets too. But you don't know what these secrets are. Is she telling him to do something? Is she telling him, hey, go kill your roommate or burn down the White House or whatever? You don't know. You don't know if he's going to be okay after he finds the secrets out. You don't know what would have happened if his eyes stayed open. There's a lot of just unanswered questions and a lot of ambiguous stuff. And again, the other shorts didn't answer every question, but they answered enough to where the story was comprehensive, you understood, and you were at the end. This feels like there needs to be more. And that sometimes happens. I will say, the shorts that I've worked on, especially when we did them for 48-hour film festivals, you have 48 hours to write, cast, create your costumes and your sets and everything, all your props, and then you have to film the whole thing, and then you have to edit it all in 2 days. In a 48-hour window, you have to do all that, and you have to submit it. So you have to come up with a comprehensive, cohesive story, film the whole story with whatever people and locations and props and costumes you have, edit it to a final film that looks and sounds reasonably good, and then that's your story. And sometimes you have to cut things that you wish you wouldn't. There was one I did where I got to be the star. I was the main role in the shorts. And there was a part in there where I have an argument with myself, basically. And, there's a lot of interaction. There's a lot of me going back and forth. At one point, I'm like breaking down, screaming and crying. And a lot of that had to get cut. We trimmed half that interaction, including a lot of my big responses to it. Not because they were poorly done, although they probably were, because it was me doing the acting, but just because we didn't have the time. For a 40-hour film festival, you only have so much time to edit what you shot. And so you can't use everything. Sometimes you have to cut stuff just because you don't have time to edit it. And also, there's usually limitations. Your film can only be X amount of minutes long, and it includes the studio logos at the front and the credits at the back. So you have to edit for time. So it's not unheard of for a short to maybe have a couple open questions, but you still need to get the full story out there. And I feel like this one, it didn't quite do that for me. And maybe I'm wrong. It won the award for Best Horror Short, so obviously a lot of people enjoyed it. And it's not that it's not enjoyable. It looked great. I get what they were going for. It feels like a really good start to a story. I just need a little more to understand the why and the what next of it. But this one especially, if you're watching this video right now, me talking, go watch this short. Again, all the shorts are in the links. Please go watch them. But watch this one specifically, and then I don't like to, beg for comments, but comment on this one, not because I need the engagement, but because I really want to know what you thought. Like, I want to hear from other people. Let me know what you thought of this short. Let me know if there's something you picked up that I missed. Like, if you interpreted an end-to-end story, or the questions that I asked, if you're like, oh, I didn't get that question because I think X. Like, let me know. I want to know other people's interpretations here. I'm curious to see, maybe there was something that I missed. I want other people's feedback here. I would be genuinely interested to see what folks have to say. All right, next up we have Double Vision. Another YouTube recommendation, and another one I have thoughts about. Now, at first, I wanted to nitpick this film, because this is the first of the batch so far that have looked indie. And now, I always struggle to explain this, but when you watch indie films, they always have a certain look to them. I don't know if it's the lighting or what it is, but they have this look that you can tell it was done on a low budget. And that sounds mean or unfair. I don't even know if that's the best way to put it. They have this certain look. If you watch a lot of indie films, you know what I mean. And this one has that look. It doesn't affect the film. It doesn't mean it's bad. It has that look. I noticed right away. And then I noticed too, as this one was going on, basically everything was a static shot. It was always just a camera on a tripod, like what you're watching right now. My camera's not moving. There's no transitions. When I go from talking about one film to the next film, I'm leaving the room and watching the next film, but you don't see any of that. You see me talking, and then it just snap cuts to me talking again. The camera never moves, because I don't have a camera operator. I'm doing this, I don't know why I just said operator, like I'd never said the word before, but I'm doing this solo. There's not another person here to operate the camera. So when I was watching this movie, at first I'm like, there's a lot of static shots. Everything is just tripod. There's no movement. There's no, transitions. In a lot of films, you're probably not even aware of it because it happens in the background. People don't always notice, but a lot of times to show that time is passing or that a location is changing or that someone is moving, you have a transition of some sort. When you go from one shot to another. Like if I was going to leave this room and I had a cameraman and they wanted to show that I'm leaving this room and am now in a new location or possibly even a new building. Let's say I say in dialogue to you right now, yeah, I gotta run to the store real quick. So I would open the door here, and I would walk out the door. And then the camera would not cut to me inside the store. The door would be like this, or maybe I'd close it on the way out. And then it would cut to some sort of transition footage, just for a second. But it would show, a car going down the road. Or maybe it would show a car pulling out of the driveway, and then a car pulling into a parking lot outside a store. You have this quick transition footage just to show movement, to show that something is happening, to literally transition you from one shot to another. This short did not have that. Like I said, it was all static tripod shots, and it's just one scene to the next immediately. You're always looking at the main actress, the focus of the film, because there's nothing to transition her from any one thing to any other thing. So that was a bit jarring at first. And then, I guess onto the prospect of the film itself, there's this woman who she's on her phone a lot at first, and I believe she checked the mail, she's leaving a building of some sort, and then she's in the parking lot, and she sees what appears to be herself. She closes her eyes, she opens them again, it's gone. Later on, she is in what we assume is her home, and, she's just on her computer doing her thing, and all of a sudden she hears a noise. She goes and looks, her front door is open, she goes to close it, and then when she sees up the stairs back to where she came from, she sees what appears to be herself again. And then she reacts weirdly where she turns the light off and tries to hide her eyes. So instead of looking at the thing and trying to investigate it or trying to see if it's coming at her or what's going to happen, she tries to avoid it. When she opens her eyes again, not only is it still there, it's gotten closer. And again, she tries to hide her eyes. She wants to pretend it's not there. And like I said before, horror reactions, they have to be dumb or else the genre doesn't exist. But this reaction to me is just especially dumb. Like, if you saw it move you didn't see it, but if it moved while your eyes were closed the first time, don't close them again. It's just going to get closer. But anyway, when she finally opens them again and looks up the stairs, it's not up the stairs anymore. Then she turns and sees it's actually right here, around the corner. And that's where it ends. And so, this maybe wasn't as much open-ended as the last one. I understood what was happening here. There's this thing that looks like her, and, she's seeing it, maybe it's following her, whatever the case is, it exists, and she doesn't want it to. And in the end, because she kept looking away or trying to ignore it, it is now right there next to her, and it's presumably going to get her. But then the credits rolled, and I understood why the film was shot the way it was. The whole thing was a work of one person. The woman who starred in it was also the writer and director and presumably the editor. She did all of this herself. So that's why it probably doesn't have the most professional edit, the color grading or the transition stuff. That's why the camera couldn't move. It was always on a tripod. So that just reframed the quality of the short for me. I will give her a little more credit now because, you expect certain things of certain films. For example, if you're talking about an indie film, you forgive that it doesn't have the CG that a feature would have, because obviously it doesn't. Nothing made by a team of 10 people for a $1,000 budget is going to compare to Avengers Endgame. There's orders of magnitude more people and money and resources available to that studio to make that, the pinnacle of cinema. Whether you think it is or not doesn't matter. You understand my point. So in an indie film, you have certain expectations. And here, you lower them even more because you realize it's one person. She did this herself on a camera with presumably no budget. I don't even think she had an editor. And so, I can forgive a lot more now. Like, it's decent enough. I get the story. I do get the creepy appeal of seeing this monster that's not talking or doing anything. It's not moving while you're watching it. It's just unnerving to just be there, motionless, still, and out of place, especially when it looks like yourself. So, it's a fun concept. I would have liked if they explained a little more to show that it is in fact a threat. And like I said, if they could have done some transitions just to make things clearer. For example, the building she's getting the mail in, is that the same building she's in later on? We don't really know because we don't get the transitionary periods to show that we're moving to a new location. You just get a couple of shots back to back. So I guess that's my filmmaking advice that no one asked for. If you're going to do a film like this, film some transitions of anything, just to show movement, just to show that time is passing, that the location is changing, whatever it is. Make sure you have a transition of some sort. But other than that, it was still a decent short. It wasn't poorly shot. It didn't look bad. Everything was fine. It's not my favorite. I don't know if this one said it was an award winner like all the others, but that doesn't mean it was bad. I'd say it's still worth checking out. Again, it's a short. It's only a couple of minutes. It's not going to hurt you to spend a couple of minutes and see it. If you like horror like me, sometimes it's fun just to ingest other people's ideas and see what they come up with. Even if it doesn't amount to much, just to see what other stories and ideas are out there, just to help your own creative juices flow more and give you ideas for stories. You have these conversations where you talk about, how would I do this particular project differently if it were me? And I think that's what will make people a better filmmaker, is to watch a lot of films. I say that after my friend Tim Davis, who's appeared in a couple of these, watches almost no movies and is an amazing filmmaker. But I think it definitely helps to watch different films of different genres, by different creators, even ones from, foreign languages, whatever. Watch everything you can and just get ideas from all these different stories and see what other people are doing and how. See what effects they pull off, what monster designs they go with, what stories they favor, what kind of tropes they avoid or lean into. It's just interesting to ingest all of that. So if for no other reason, I would say watch this short, just to see one other example of how someone is doing something, especially on their own with no budget, and give you ideas for yourself. And that being said, let's go on to the next one. Okay, next up we have another recommendation called Never Left. I don't know if I love this one. The visuals were okay. This was clearly another indie film, but it didn't look as indie as the last one. So they had a team, probably a halfway decent editor. In the very end, you see a monster creature thing of some sort. They had decent makeup on it. But I don't know. Okay, let me just go through it. There's a guy watching TV. I don't know what he's watching. It looks like just a woman sitting in a room, and there's noise that sounds like a news broadcast, but that's not what's on the TV, so that's a little weird. And then he starts hearing noises, and so he reacts. Eventually, he's just looking at the ceiling, trying to figure out what he's hearing because it's upstairs, and then eventually he gets his phone with his flashlight, and then he goes to investigate. Why he doesn't turn on the lights in the house, I don't know. He's got the flashlight phone. But then things get weird, because things start to happen, something will move, or a door will slam, or eventually he'll see a thing, which, by the way, appears to look like him. It's wearing the exact same outfit, just the skin is black. So I thought they were going an angle where it's like himself, and maybe he doesn't realize that he's doing things, and he doesn't think he does, or maybe he's possessed and doesn't know it yet, something like that. I thought they would play that angle. They did not. But as he's reacting to these things, he's not portraying panic well. And it's a hard thing to do. I get it. When I had to do it in Will of El Harbor, I failed miserably. I understand it is tricky, but I wish he could have done a little better. Once he starts seeing the things, and he's really supposed to be reacting, he's not. Occasionally he'll go, but that's about it. At one point he's running away from this monster, and he's going upstairs, but he's just kind of like a light jog up the stairs. If you're panicked and you're frightened and you're trying to move, you're going to trip up those stairs. Your hands are going to be clamoring for the railing or the wall or anything to support yourself and propel you forward. You're going to take them 2 or 3 stairs at a time. You're booking up those stairs. And he was doing none of that. He also wasn't panting or breathing heavily, even when he's sitting there in a corner where the monster appears to be in front of him moving a chair and a door behind him just slammed. At that point, he should feel not only panicked, but trapped. It's on every side of him. He should be hyperventilating. He should be going crazy. He should be feeling like he's backed into a corner. And he can't get words out. He can't catch his breath. He's freaking out. He should really be doing that. It should feel like he's panicked. He doesn't know what to do. He's trapped. He's about to lash out something. And you don't get that at all. I want more of that from him. It's not to say he's a bad actor. Like I said, it's a tricky thing to do, and it's hard to do, especially it's a 5.5 minute short, so he would have to do that for probably 4.5 of those 5.5 minutes. That's a long time to keep that up. And for shooting, it's not all shot in one, so he has to maintain that sense of panic for, the hours it took to shoot this, and for every take. I get it, it's asking a lot, but it would have sold everything more, because he's basically the only person you see on screen, so his reactions make or break it, and I feel like he didn't do enough to sell it, so I'm not really sucked in. And then my other major complaint is at the end, you finally see this monster, and multiple times throughout the short, you saw a picture of what appears to be just an old gangster. He's got the traditional hat, and he's holding a revolver, but it makes you think of Prohibition era, gangster with a Tommy gun, that kind of thing. And so you see this old sepia-toned picture of this guy, and then finally you see this monster, unrelated to the guy. And you start to wonder why they keep cutting to that guy. And then you see the picture of the guy again, and the picture starts to morph into more of like a monstrous visage, which that effect was cool, but it didn't answer a lot of questions. I don't really understand. Also, the short film is called Never Left, and when the guy goes into the room to investigate, eventually he sees words scrawled on the wall and says, "He was never gone." And just, if you're going to call it Never Left, it should probably say, "He has never left," just to, tie it into the title. So that was a little weird. But yeah, in the end, the monster thing, it just felt very out of place. And especially, they had, stock audio put over it of just, monster screams or of a guy going, "Oh no, please help me," whatever it is. It was done with more enthusiasm. I just don't want to rile my dog up, so I'm not going to scream. But, I don't know, that audio was way out of place and killed whatever mood they had built. The monster was a bit weird as it was. It felt out of place with everything else we just saw. But especially with the audio over top of it, it really killed the vibe of the short. So they could have done without any of that crap. Until then, it wasn't terrible. The tension they were building and him, panicking as best he was and running through the house, that all worked. And then, like I said, every time you see the arm of this monster, that's all you really saw was the arm. He was wearing the same flannel shirt that the main character was. So I really thought they were going to play that angle more. I thought, like I said, it was going to be him. And maybe he was hallucinating all this. Maybe he goes outside and he gets away trying to escape this monster. And then in the end, you snap back to the house and realize that the monster was him and he had never left the house. That's what the title was alluding to. He was this monster, and you find out whatever thing the monster did, maybe he killed the roommate or the family or whatever. And so this guy was trying to run away from this monster, but it turns out he was the monster and did those things. That would have been a more interesting take, I feel, and it would have fit the title better if he had never left the house because he was the monster that was in it. So, again, I'm not the writer or the director, it's not my job to come up with that, but if it were me, that's how I would do it different. Like I said in the last one, when you watch shorts like this, if nothing else, it's great to have those conversations. Okay, how would I do this? The problems that I see in it, how would I fix them? Or how would I try to make this a better film? So that's what I would have done. I would have liked to see the panic portrayed a little more, and then I would tie the title in with the film and try to, do the theme of, oh, he never left this house. Because the weird monster thing they went to, they didn't really explain who the old man in the picture was, what relation he had to the house, why it's haunting this one guy, and why he's now a monster. And then, like I said, the audio, when you see the monster, god-awful. It does not fit at all. But, yeah, it wasn't terrible. It was watchable. It's a decent concept. They could have gone in a different direction or done it a little better. But, yeah, still, like all the other ones, give it a watch. If nothing else, have this conversation with yourself, or in the comments, have it with me. I'll reply to every comment I get, because I never get any. But I want to hear what people think. So let me know what you thought. Let me know how you do it differently, if you agree with my take, or just anything. But yeah, go give it a watch. See for yourself. Because I'm reviewing these, I want to also promote them. I want people to watch them and, give some credit to the folks that actually took the time to make these shorts. Even if they're not my favorite, people put real effort into these. Making a film is not easy. So even if I don't love the way it came out, I want to, give these guys some credit, maybe bring some attention to them. So click on all the links in the description, watch all the shorts, give these people their due. They tried. For better or worse, they made a film that's more than most people have. Just give it a watch. But I'm going to get on the next one now. Okay, so now we're into the last three, which are ones, like I said, that I've been involved in. So I would prefer you pay them some attention. They are films that I think are worth watching and want to talk about, but if you want to skip them because you think I'm biased, then so be it, I guess. But the first one here is called Croak. This was just something someone wanted to do for fun, and luckily he let me be part of it. But yeah, so the film is about a girl who starts to think she's being chased by a frog. She gets a weird voicemail. It's kind of mumbly, a lot of weird, vague threats, and they all rhyme. And it's a weird thing, and then it ends with a frog croak. And then she starts seeing a frog as she's going places throughout her day, like school and whatnot. And, she thinks she's being chased and threatened by this frog. Now, one thing that is shown quick at the beginning of the film, but if we could go back and do it again, I would want to show more times because of the rule of three. But we see a medicine bottle at the very beginning, just to kind of hint that, oh, she's on medication, and the presumption is that that's antipsychosis medication, and so if she stops taking it, she's going to hear and see things. And that would explain a lot of the film. And later on, she freaks out in class, and someone does say, oh, she's off her meds again. And you can hear that in the background, but we could have made it more clear and a little more in your face just to drive home, to really set the audience expectation that that's what's going on here. She's off her meds. And then in the end, she has like a showdown with this frog, and then she finds out, wait, this is just a big stuffed animal. Why am I fighting with this inanimate object? That's clearly not what threatened me. And she realizes she's kind of going nuts and having a bit of a breakdown, and she walks off screen, and then you realize, oh, it's actually a friend of hers that was threatening her, presumably, and stalking her because he's standing menacingly in the background. Yeah, it tells a complete story. Like I said, we could have maybe just emphasized the medicine bottle of psychosis a little more, not to beat the audience over the head with it, but if we maybe showed her bag spilling at one point and the medicine bottle came out again, just something to really hint at she needs these, she's supposed to be taking these are an important object, let's show them more. So we could have done that. Other than that, though, it wasn't terrible. Like I said, it was just a project someone did for fun, There's no money behind it, and I'm sure that shows. And, everyone acting in it, we were just doing it for free over a weekend. It's just a fun kind of thing. So, it's not like no one's winning an Oscar for it. But it was a lot of fun, and it tells a coherent story. And I have some fun anecdotes on this one, so I'm going to share those. One thing, the scene where I show up, we're in a classroom, and it's where the lead, Rory, has a bit of a breakdown for the first time. And before that happens, a lot of the people in the class are passing a note around. And passing the note was intentional. However, what wasn't planned, which happened completely by accident, is as these people were passing it, they ended up going in a circle around the room, and it ended up working in such a way that it went back to the person that passed it with nobody opening or responding to it. That was not planned. That was not intentional. When the person gets the note back and goes, "The fuck are you doing?" That was genuine because she was expecting someone at some point to stop, open the thing, and write back on it or look at it or whatever. I think we just had some inside jokes about the production written out anyway. But yeah, it was just a funny little thing that had made its way back. That was not planned. That was just funny that it happened. Also, the dialogue in that scene, me lecturing a student and just ridiculing him for being the dumbest, that was not originally in the script either. That was a bit of ad-lib. I just started riffing on the character. When they had me audition, they're like, hey, we'll probably have you play this instructor, so can you just do a brief thing and do a lecture? And at first I played it straight and I did it dry, like a Ben Stein in Ferris Bueller, just a very plain, boring delivery, because that's what I think of with college instructors. And they didn't love that. They wanted more from it. They wanted more character. So I'm like, all right, let me riff a little, and I just kind of ignored the script, and I started lecturing the students because they're not paying attention or doing well. And they liked that a lot more. They wanted me to go with that character. And then on the day, the one student who's playing the dummy, he just kind of played up that angle, and so I leaned in on him, and it just worked out, and we had this fun little back and forth. I think that's the power of ad-lib in a lot of short films, is that, if your film is not super strict, as long as you're sticking to the story, but you don't care about the exact dialogue points and phrasings and wording of every single thing, I think that when people ad-lib, it can work in your favor. It can be a lot more fun because the actors, when they play a role, whether it's a short role or a big one, they get involved in it. They have an idea in their head of who this character is and how they would talk and how to portray them. And so if you let them just kind of play with that and ad-lib a little, you have a lot of fun with it. You get some really cool interactions that you probably couldn't have written as good as they played out. Famously, Tony Stark in the end of Iron Man saying, "I am Iron Man." That was ad-libbed. That was not in the script. He was supposed to keep the secret, but he decided not to because it fit the character to be so braggadocious and flamboyant and be like, "No, I am him. Give me the credit." That was just a fun experience I had on set, and I think more films should do that. But no, the main thing I wanted to talk about in that scene, and really in the movie, the main character, Rory, is played by an actress, Lee. She's an amazing actress. We didn't use it in the film, but at one point, we were having her just do various screams as she was having her freak out. And she did one at one point that just, it was the perfect, horror movie scream queen scream. She was reacting to, the slasher murdering her boyfriend in front of her and was now coming for her. Just, she really had the chops for it. And, just a lot of her nonverbal acting too, just the way she would react to certain things and the looks she would give sometimes. I feel like she's gonna go far. She was young when we filmed this. I think she was only 17. It was a couple of years ago, so she's older now and could probably work on films and work a full day. But I hope more local filmmakers pick her up and cast her in things. I think she could do a lot. She's really good. So watch this film. Like I've said for all of them, watch all the films. But, keep an eye on her, look out for her, because I feel like if she's cast in more things, she's gonna do well. I thought she killed it just for this short, and I think she could do really good in other stuff going forward. So I think that's my main takeaway of this film, is that she was the right cast, and I hope she gets cast in more things, because I feel like she's gonna be great if people give her the chance. But yeah, there's not too much to say, The story was effective, we did what we could with it, we all had fun, and in the end it's a coherent movie that's just, it's a goofy, fun time to watch. And that being said, I will once again move on to the next one. Okay, so this one is The Six. And I've mentioned some of my experience on this film multiple times on this channel, but I think this is my first time actually just talking about the film. I have so many stories from behind the scenes, I could make a whole video on this. I'll try to keep it remotely succinct. Basically, this one was shot for a 40-hour film festival, and we got the genre social commentary. Our film had to, comment on some aspect of real life. And not only that, but our director had recently watched Squid Games. So I think that was just fresh in her brain, and we decided for our social commentary to, comment on the healthcare system and how it's unaffordable for a lot of people and the lengths some people might go to pay a hospital bill. So basically it ends up being like John Q meets the Hunger Games. Honestly, I love the short, and I know it's going to sound like I'm biased, but really it's fun to watch. And I know what's going to happen. I was there when we filmed it, still get a little teary-eyed at parts. It's very well acted. That's the first thing I have to say, is that the two leads, John and Taylor, absolutely incredible. When they're on screen, their dynamic with each other and the way they act off each other is just great. On the day when we were filming, the big scene between them at the end, it was just a pleasure to watch, because they were just giving a masterclass, and the rest of us are like, shit, we gotta be better, because we gotta get on their level. So yeah, I loved the acting in this. I don't mean mine, I mean everyone else. They did a great job. And the story really came together, too. This started as just a 5-minute short for the festival. And then, our director, Taylor, who's also one of the leads there, she came up with these ideas to flesh the world out more and to just build more of the backstory and explain how they got in this predicament and where the situation came from. And it makes it feel a lot more complete. You get a really full story now, and it's fleshed out the world a bit, and it feels like a cohesive thing. It doesn't feel like there's fluff. It's 20 minutes long. It's the longest short I've talked about by far. But it all feels necessary. It flows well. The pacing is great. You're not bored. It doesn't get slogged down at any point. If any complaints on my end, I'd say it could be longer. We could spend more time in the actual game. But yeah, just very well done. Well acted, well directed. And again, I know it sounds like I'm blowing smoke up the asses of myself and the people I worked with, but I think it came out as a good film. And I will give some behind-the-scenes stuff, because it's just fun for me, and besides, if I have this insight, why not share it? The ending there, when our main character is having his breakdown, when he gets the news that he lost both his wife and his daughter, he's on the ground and he's just having a breakdown. He's freaking out. At one point, we didn't use it in the film, but he just let out the most just primal scream of just heartbreak and desperation. It was amazing on the day. But before that, we were doing the trick where, you have the camera circle a full 360 around the person just to show them at every angle while they're having this breakdown. And we did not have a dolly. We didn't have a camera dolly. We didn't have a crane. So we had no good way to move the camera around them. So what we did was our cinematographer went handheld and had a gimbal to keep things steady and just ran in a circle around him, which meant that the sound guy, the script supervisor, all the other people that were a part of this scene, the people that helped reset the props and everything, we all had to run behind him because otherwise we'd be caught on camera at some point as he did this 360. You'd see us in the background. So for any bystander, and there were some, I'll get to that in a second, this had to look insane because there's one guy on his knees on the ground screaming, throwing dollar bills in the air, and there's a dozen or so people running in a circle around him like some weird, twisted adult version of Duck, Duck, Goose. It was hysterical, just out of context, but the shots that we got from it looked incredible. Also, I mentioned bystanders because while we were filming this scene, the adjacent building in the lot that we were filming in was a karate dojo for children. And at some point, they heard us screaming and saw people running like idiots. And so one or two kids would trickle over to the side door to see what we were doing. And eventually we had to have someone from production go talk to them and explain, hey, we're doing a film, so you can watch if you want, but just, be quiet, don't run out here, we got to get the shots. By the end of it, the entire karate class had stopped, and all the children and their instructors were lined up watching us film these scenes in this parking lot. So it was an absolutely ridiculous day of filming, but it's just a fun memory. Honestly, this film is probably the most fun I've had on any set. I think I enjoyed working on this one more than any of the stuff I've worked on. It was just a blast. There's another part where, at one point, I catch up to the lead. I'm like the big bad in the game. And so, I'm menacing and I'm chasing this guy, first with a crowbar, and then I decide to throw the crowbar down. I'm just going to choke him out with my bare hands. And so I'm doing that. And the way the set was, because we were filming in a building that was used as haunted houses and escape rooms, also like axe throwing and stuff like that. And so we're in one of the haunted house sections, and so I back this guy up against the wall, and I lift him up a bit, and I'm holding him against the wall, and I'm just choking him. And because of the camera angle and the way we were, our sound guy basically had to be behind this guy against the wall, holding a mic like this, right over his own head to get our sound. And so he was right in the action, inches away. And apparently I actually scared him because when we were filming, I had to look like I'm trying to kill this guy with my bare hands. So I just, without even realizing it, I was essentially just snarling and breathing deep through my nose and just really apparently intimidating. And to the point where I freaked out our sound guy quite a bit. He seemed actually scared of me in that moment, which I take as a compliment. It was really fun. But yeah, it was just another funny moment. The whole thing, honestly, the whole production was just a series of fun and funny moments, leading to a not at all funny film. It's definitely not meant to be funny. There's some moments of gore and suspense and a lot of sadness. But yeah, I know it's going to sound self-promotionary. Like I said, I'm aware of how it comes across, but I swear it's not objectively. I think it's a good film. I recommend watching it. It was a lot of fun to make. It's a lot of fun to watch. It was a cool story. It came out really well. It was very well acted by the leads. Give this a watch. But I will stop. I'm not going to drag on too long for the ones I was in because I don't want it to seem like I'm just playing favorites or whatever. So I will get on to the next film. Okay, and my last one for this video, which is going to end up being very long. Longer than if I had just watched Dr. Sleep, to be honest. But my last one is Billy Must Live. This is another one that I am in, And I'm proud to say we won Best Ensemble, which I was part of. So while I don't have that award, our director does. I was one of the people that helped win it. So yay me. Um, but this was honestly a blast. This was my first film working with this crew, and the chemistry that myself and the other leads formed immediately was just amazing. You know, this was a very long night of filming, as sometimes happens on 48s. I think we were up shooting until like 4 a.m. And it just, I don't know, we all had such a blast. We played off each other so well. I think we all kept each other's energy up and just kept ourselves able to film and make this happen. And it came out really well. I love the final product. But about the film itself, enough of the autofellatio here. Basically, it's a zombie horror comedy. You know, there's a team of like special ops people that need to get extracted from this building they found themselves trapped in, like an old school. And so, you know, they're going through the building, combing with their weapons, trying to, you know, kill any zombies they need to, and then get to the roof to wait for the chopper that's going to come and pick them up. And they meet basically a maintenance guy in the building. Why is there a maintenance guy during the zombie apocalypse? We don't know, but according to him, he's an essential worker. This was made closer to COVID time. It was a funny joke then. And just a lot of hilarity ensues. You know, there is some good action, like there's some good costumes and everything, but it's more comedy than horror, and it's just a lot of fun. And actually, one of the leads, the main guy, Paul, I believe his name was Paul. I really should remember his name. I had such a good time on set with him. I'm not sure now. I want to say it was Paul. I'll put an asterisk on the screen if I'm wrong and put his real name. But he is also a professional stuntman in Hollywood, and in fact, if you watched The Dark Knight, the scene in the beginning where there's the bank heist and all the clown masks and the Joker reveal at the end, he's one of those clowns that gets unmasked and killed in that process. He's worked on a bunch of films and, you know, like done the choreography. So he worked with a lot of us to do like our big fight scene where we had to fight with weapons and do all of that. Granted, we had real quick to learn whatever moves we were going to do and then film the scenes. So, you know, we didn't get to do any elaborate choreography, but it was cool to work with someone that's, you know, legit been in Hollywood and been in real films. And it was just fun to work alongside him because he was a fun dude to work with. But again, film itself, so we're going through this building and we keep running into the zombies, we keep killing them all, they have a zombie queen. There's a storyline that I don't think ended up playing out in the final product, but originally we were going to show that she had the power to like mind control or turn the zombies. We were going to have him turn our lead character and maybe have to face off against him or at least have a moment of tension before she gets knocked out by the maintenance guy. I think originally we cut that because for the 48 there were time restrictions, and then we didn't have the footage we needed to make it make sense, so we kind of just let that subplot go. But overall, it's your basic zombie thing. It mostly was just an excuse to have a lot of fun and get some funny jokes in, and I think it plays out really well. Again, I think the acting was good, you know, I think everyone did a great job. It helps that, like I said, we had someone from Hollywood on stage, so he just, you know, he got to help us sell it a little more. And our makeup guy, McCoy, all the props in the world to him. He made everybody look incredible. Every time I've worked with him, he is just a consummate professional and very good at what he does. So all the makeup looks great in this, you know. All the blood and the viscera and the prosthetics and everything that he can do, he really shines in this. So it looks very good. You know, the acting is good. It's shot by Tim Davis from Nox Luna, who's been in a couple of these reviews now. And there's no one better behind the camera or in the editing bay. So, of course, the film itself looks amazing. Yeah, I can't praise this enough. It's a lot of fun. It's a good thing to watch. It is. If you enjoy fun, then you should watch it. If you don't enjoy fun, then I understand why you're watching this channel, but you should really work on that. I'm trying to think of any like inside stories on this. Probably my favorite moment is when our one character there, the tech guy in our crew, he's really nerding out over an old Macintosh he gets to play with, And then the facilities manager, the maintenance guy, comes over with a laptop, like, no, just use this. And he's so disappointed he doesn't get to use the old tech. And then when we go to leave the room, he rushes back so he can just touch and sniff it. That was mostly ad-libbed. That was not in the script. We just kind of decided at the moment to do that, and we left it in because it was way too funny to cut. But in that scene, his voice is cracking, and it sounds like it's out of excitement. Like, he's so excited he can't contain himself, and he's just, oh my god, to one of these! But what really happened is we were up filming until 4 a.m., and that was the last scene we filmed, and he had lost his voice through filming throughout the day. All the times we had to all like shout at each other or yell to react to something or just talking nonstop. And so he didn't have any voice left. So that wasn't excitement. That was genuinely his voice had cracked at that point and he couldn't speak normally anymore. So it's good we got the scene when we did, because honestly we weren't going to get many more takes out of him. It was a funny thing that happened. Going back and watching it now, it's funny. At the time, we were all probably miserable at that point, but it just, yeah, I don't know. It was a blast. It came out really fun. I don't have a whole lot to say about this one. Like, there's no really ridiculous stories from on set. It was a good time, and it ended up being a good film. Like I said, we won Best Ensemble in the original competition it was for, and then since then it's been shown at other competitions. I think it's won a few other awards. Most of the shorts we've worked on have, which I heard myself as I say that out loud, how just shitty and self-important that sounded. It wasn't supposed to be. But I've been lucky enough to be part of some really cool productions that have gone on to win awards and be well received. But this is, you know, the first one I worked with this team and with this crew and with a lot of other people. It was my first ensemble gig. So I enjoyed it. I love the final product. So, like with all the other films, you should watch this one. And yeah, I think that's where I'm going to end this. It was a good number of films there. I think, 8 I did. Like I said, this review is probably as long as the Dr. Sleep movie I avoided watching. But I think this was fun, just going through a bunch of different shorts. And yeah, for the last time, seriously, please go watch these shorts. I've linked them all below. I want to give the creators of them, not just the ones I worked with, the other ones that I have no knowledge or relation to, I want them to, you know, get more views. They did good work, and even if it was just okay, they worked hard on it. So I want them to get the views. They deserve that. Please, 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 I beg you, if you're going to watch anything that I review ever, let it be these shorts. Go down in the description, click all the links, watch the shorts, please. If you have thoughts on any of them, I would love to hear them more than most of the stuff I cover. This is a topic clearly I'm passionate about. I've worked on a lot of shorts. I enjoy watching them. These are things that I just find really interesting. So if you have fun feedback, do a conversation in the comments. I will respond to you. I have nothing better to do with my life. Yeah, I guess that's it. I've talked way too much already, so I'm going to stop. I will see you tomorrow.